looking at my calendar and I saw Rick's name come up for doing the presentation today. I go, but he just did it. I looked, it was a year ago.
A
A year
year
ago, yeah.
ago, not
A
month.
year, almost a year ago to the day. It's
Yes,
unbelievable how fast time goes.
especially, as we age.
It must just mean that we're having more fun. It goes that quick.
We are
So
having fun.
Rick is from Mississippi, or lives in Mississippi right now anyway, and is a brand ambassador, does great, great artwork. Was mesmerizing to watch you last week, or 2 weeks ago, and then last year. So looking forward to see what you do today, Rick.
So am I. So,
And all of us.
and it's, I appreciate everyone who is following us. And like I said, when if I stumble, then everyone's going to ask questions. Okay. So, but we hope it turns out well, and we'll see how it goes.
Fantastic. Ethel, did you want to start with showing some of Rick's
Yeah,
artwork?
yeah, he's got new artworks to share, and we
Awesome.
want to ensure that everybody gets to follow Rick on socials. Okay. So if you haven't followed Rick on Instagram, you can do that now. He is Rick Anderson Art in IG, and he also has a page on Facebook. And the next slides are some of the latest artworks that Rick wants to share today. We start with this piece, Rick. You can
This is
share a line or two about the
uh,
work.
this is I like to paint very colorful, and I like the movement and the light and the dark, and um, how the colors react towards each other with the warms and the cool colors. And I like the feeling of movement, and then when I put a structure into the piece of work, it gives it a sense of it. This is a place, and this is where some people live close to. So this piece is not a large piece, but like I said, it's loose, warm and cool colors, movement, and light and dark. And I think that's important.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
Have another, Ethel? Ah, that's the same field. This is a smaller piece of a large piece that I did that got into the Southern Watercolor Society show 2 years ago. And again, it's a structure that I'm familiar with in my state and in the South, in the United States. And what makes it work so well is I'm attracted to the lights and the darks and the contrast. And this sort of has the feeling with the foreground of water, as if we've had a good storm or thunderstorm, and then the sun comes out. Like in our state, it can be 30 degrees one day and 80 degrees the next day. It can be thunderstorms and then weeks of sunshine and hardly ever any rain. So we're getting a little rain today. So that's typical of what I like to paint. And also, if you notice, I put pen and ink in this one as well. That, I don't know why I do that, but it's just fun to do. Very simple. Now, this is not anywhere in particular, but again, in traveling, I like the feel of trees without leaves, and because I see them as lines. And that's how, when I paint these, it's like using the real small rigger brush, and I can just get those movements of the lines. But what it helps with this is breaking the space where the ochre is, the yellowish area, and then giving a reflection into the water. And the little bit of like cobalt blue, I think, in the background. Just a stormy day with no leaves on the trees, just a pleasant and calm feel. This particular piece is Take the Long Way Home. A lot of times we have, or I run into the situation where if I take a full sheet 22 by 30, and I only use all but if I cut it and I have maybe 7 inches left, and this is like 7 inches by say 15 inches, and I actually have this piece today that I'll show you in real life. But a lot of times horizontal thin pieces are not easy to paint. And so what I do is, again, I like to use that loose foreground where it looks like there's water there and there's movement. And I also think about it as driving through in a car, and you look over to your left or right, and things just sort of blur together. And that's the feel, and you focus on the structure. And I like these structures because with the loose design, with all the movement, the planes in the piece, sometimes a rectangle with the light gets the attention of the viewer, and that almost becomes like a focal point. So it's not so much I paint these structures to paint the structures. I paint these shapes because they're rectangular, and you can focus on it. And that's the same thing here. And today I'm going to work on two pieces at one time. And because my paint is, I used a lot of water in the painting, sometimes rather than using the hair dryer, I will set a piece aside and work on something else. So it may be a half sheet and then a sheet this size in the same manner. Now, these are all pretty much warm, cool colors, except for that little bit of warm color on that rectangular roof, which again, it's small, but it contrasts with the cool colors, and it gets your attention. And the tree in the background without the leaves, those are nice lines that break that vertical space. And
Awesome.
So what do we do next, John?
You want to go ahead and start, Rick?
Absolutely. Let me go change the camera.
And it's okay if people ask you questions as you're working.
Please do. That's how I taught, what I taught school. Now I wanted to show this piece. This a little bit different from the others that I just showed you. When we were after Fabriano and we went to Amsterdam, and on the way back to the airport in Amsterdam, riding in the taxi, cell phones are great to take quick photos. And so look to the left and I see this windmill and the light on there. Now, it was not a rainy day, but this piece, it looks like it's a rainy day. So again, like I said, when I paint today, I will use that structure as just the subject. And I don't plan out everything from the starting to the end, because I like to let the paint work what it does. What?
I think their microphone.
Oh, okay. I like the paint to work the way it does, and then I'm always thinking what to do next. And you see it appears like a rainy day here, with the sunshine coming from a distance. Now, what's interesting about this is when I was painting the sky with the different colors, I didn't quite like the way it was looking. So I love the titanium white, and I use the gouache a lot in with this because I like the pigment to be so much more in depth, more pigment in the gouache than the watercolor. But it's interesting how the white titanium gouache, as it's still wet, well, at first when I apply it, it appears to be very, very, very white, but then it settles into the paint and creates a nice look. And also, if you see this, now, you see the warmth in the background, that was with quinacridone gold, and with the white over that, with some of the cobalt blue over that. But also, I really love to use the lavender. It has a magical feel to me, and that's why it's one of my dot card colors. That lavender, see, and right here in this area here, it just covered over it, but to me, it gets the feel of water and movement. And I thought, I don't want to do something that will disrupt that. And that's why I like to paint very spontaneously, because I don't like to use the word accidents, but the paint comes alive and does what it does. And the more we learn as artists how the paint might react when we work it, the more we can sort of control or know what is going to happen when we do apply certain colors. And fortunately, in this area here, where you notice that was the water where it stopped, and then I started water here, but there are times where I don't want to cover the entire area with water because it's going to bleed into it and bleed together. But as this is laid in, I went, oh, I don't want to touch that anymore. I just want to let that do this and have that horizontal line that breaks that space, and your eye goes from here to here and upward. So sometimes things happen that you weren't planning, you didn't know, but you never know what's going to happen unless you paint and paint and paint. So that's that story. And this is the piece of work here that Ethel had shown earlier. The horizontal, the space, the planes, the geometric shape, the warm and the cool colors in the background, and the going into the sky. It's just fascinating, and the looseness. So I'm going to set that aside, and using my dot card colors, and I may use a few other colors with it, but I'm going to work on this particular piece here. This is a typical structure in the state of Mississippi or in the South, different other states. But I captured this because I really liked the light. And to me, when you can capture light, which creates the contrast, which creates depth and movement, and it just gives the viewer a real strong image to look at. So the painting today will not be like this, but it's reference, and that's what we all do. And I have my dot card colors in front of me here so I can refer to them if I need to. So again, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them. And I will set my reference photo over here. And this is a new brush I got. This is an Escoda flat brush. It's the squirrel hair, but I usually like to use this brush. But what I want to do is see how, when I apply the sky, I'm going to add some water here before I put the pigment in. Now, on this black piece of styrofoam, I put little pins, straight pins, and not tape it so that it will stay flat. And this is 300-pound Fabriano Artistico paper. So I knew it being 300-pound, it will stay flat, except sometimes with a lot of water, it will bow a little bit. So those straight pins in that 1-inch board here is going to keep this down. So just lay in some water. And I have 2 gallons of water clear. I really like to keep fresh water and let the mix either go on my palette or the mix go when I paint it here. And this brush will get that clean edge of water. You can't see it here where you are, but it's here. Now my palette over here is, I'm going to lay in some cobalt blue, and I will probably put a little bit of the lavender on top of it. So, and then a little ultramarine blue as well. Just these 2 pure colors mixing together. See how I really like how the paint just moves right into the water. And how I have this on like a 1-inch notebook at an angle, so it's a slight angle. And see where that water stops, That's where the pigment is going to stop, and I can keep that clean, sharp edge. I'm gonna
Rick, is
add
your paper cold press?
yes, cold press. Yes.
Sweet, thank you.
Now, I'm going to do something else right here too. One of my colors is indigo. Now, indigo I like because it does have, well, it's indigo. So, and I'm going to put a little bit here. I don't want to rub it in too much or blend it in too much because I don't want to kill that color, I call it. So, and this will eventually bleed down and soften it. And it's definitely going to have a nice blend with this. I clean my brush here. Looking at this shape and looking at here, I'm thinking about, I really can't do a piece almost without using quinacridone gold. I just like the magic of it. And we've seen that sky with the blue and with the gold. We'll put a lot of pigment here. And now, one thing about the quinacridone gold, when I paint with it, it sort of takes over. I mean, you can have the darkest dark, and you lay in a little bit of the quinacridone gold, and it's just going to fuse right into it. And I love that effect. Very rich here. You see how it's really mixing with the blue on paper, and we're creating sort of a greenish color. Want to be careful not to get too much infringement here. Paint with my left hand, and I'm not left-handed.
We all are, we just don't know it.
We are. Okay, I have the quinacridone gold, the cobalt, and the ultramarine blue. And it's creating a tertiary color here. And see how the indigo is starting to bleed in a little bit. Now let me lighten this up just a small bit because it may be a little darker. Yeah, that's more close. I'm thinking, I might need to move a little of this quinacridone gold over here, and then this will soften up as it starts to dry. Let's see what happens. Now, if this
Love
is
your
going
spontaneity, Rick. Beautiful.
Sorry? But now,
Love your spontaneity.
oh, thank you. Well, see, that's just what I like to
Yep.
do. I like the watercolor to control me, and it says, "Hey, Rick, repeat that color over here. Hey, you need to do this." But that's the great thing about watercolor, and
Yep.
especially when we use the Daniel Smith watercolor, because I know that if I put more quinacridone gold in my palette, it's going to be the same gold that's there already. Now, what I'm going to add to this too, I love the way it's working together. Look at that green and look at the green. It's already making, as it blends in with that blue, it's already given me the feel of trees in the background here. And look at how bright that is and how bright it is up here. It's just amazing. And, every time I work and paint with these watercolors, I learn something new. And having taught art from pre-K to university levels, I had the great opportunity of talking with students. And what was good about, like with this session, when people ask questions, that's what students do in the classroom. They ask questions as you're working, and it's nothing better than to have a question and an answer at that same time. Now, watch what I do with this quinacridone gold deep. I'm going to add a little here me get it a little richer. I'm still, if you notice, I'm still using the same brush. I think when before we signed on for the Facebook, I think Angela had mentioned something about a certain size brush and using large brushes. If you can use a larger brush to get at least the effect you're wanting, and you can't go to a lot of small details with the larger brush. And this helps to create different patterns and a different look all over the page. Now, I know that when this dries, it's going to be a lot lighter, but to me, every time I paint, I learn something new. Now, I don't think I want to hurt that, how that quinacridone gold has turned beautiful yellow here. But what I can do is take this, a little bit of cadmium yellow deep hue. That's a vivid color. I love that color. And when I add that to it, see how it changes. I think also it may be a little too bright. No, not really. That's the color. Okay. This cool color here, following this pad. Now, with this where the water is, and this line of white, it's no water. And I like that because it already is beginning to create planes so that my eye will go from here up to here. And as this is drying, I'm going to work more down here. Also, you notice this structure is up a little higher. I haven't done anything to it. A lot of times I will wait, where a lot of artists, which amazes me, is they will, the ambassadors will paint into this at the very beginning, and then it just turns into magical things. But I sometimes like to wait and work on the structure after this dries, so the water doesn't bleed into it. Now I'm going to clean my brush, go into the fresh water, just like I did at the very beginning. I'm going to lay in water, not all over, but in certain areas, and bring it down so that when I put some paint here, it's going to follow the path of the water. And one of the characteristics of some of the paintings that I do, I generally have a nice foreground that it could be like a field. And like I said earlier, when you drive by in a vehicle and you see the area of the ground in a blurry sense, that's what I'm trying to capture. And I'll just let that run off the page. And I put this on like this blue builder's foam, but I paint it black because using the pins, the straight pins in it, it will go into that and keep the paper down. And I'm looking at an angle so I can see where the water is. Now, what I will do, I'm going to go back with this blue. And this could end up being water because I'm repeating the blue there and down here. And, you know, like a lot of the pieces that I work on, they don't come together until right at the end. I'm going to add, oh, you know what? I haven't used my lavender yet. Gonna mix lavender with that blue. I love that color. You may not be able to see it at first, but this lavender will just bleed beautifully into the other blue. And there may be this, that's starting to dry, not quite, but I'm going to put a little here. And the blue mixing again with the yellow is going to create like a grassy color. I can just get a little bit, lay that water in. And this brush will hold a lot of water. This breaks the space up here. I'm going to let that rest a bit. And that's getting dry. I'm going to take this rigger. I don't think I can put some trees without leaves on that. I'm going to come over here. Well, that's the cobalt. I mean, not the cobalt, but the sepia. But I don't want it to be just by itself. I'm gonna put a little bit. This is the quinacridone burnt orange here. In with this will be the warm and the cool together, and it will give the feeling. All right, let me pull this down a little bit. It may bleed into it. You see how that's starting to give the feeling of the tree. And of course, another reason to put trees like this to it's movement. It gives the viewer the ability for the eye to follow that path of the trees. And touch it right at the top of that structure. Okay, that's sort of starting to work a little bit. Now, what I'm going to do is, as this is drying and as that's drying, I'm going to set this one aside and then go to set it and then go to this piece here. Now it's going to be pretty bright until I paint on it, and because of the way the light is. Again, I'm going to use my same flat brush. I think I want to start with this one just wet on dry with my undersea green. This color is just amazing. No water on the paper. Look how these lines will just go nicely.
What's the name of the color?
It is undersea green. Beautiful color.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Now again, notice here all the different planes. As I twist the brush, creates a nice movement. Look at that direction of that. I'm gonna wash that out, and then I'm gonna now use the perylene green, which is going to be a little bit darker. I'm not going to cover it over the entire area I just laid in. But what I'm doing here is seeing how these colors interact with each other. And this could end up being just a total abstract contemporary piece as far as the design goes. But I will work on that structure. Okay, now I've got that pinned down. I'm going to just take a chance here where I've got the outline, the structure, and this is going to be basically like there are trees all behind the structures. Be real careful. Now, on purpose, I'm not going down any farther than here. Oh, got in that. I'll lift that a little bit.
Rick, did you say that this specific brush, is this a different brush than the before? Or
No,
is
it's
this
the same one.
Okay, is this a synthetic
No, it's squirrel hair.
squirrel? Okay, thank you.
You're welcome, number 21.
Perfect.
Now, I have blocked that off. The attention is there. And that color alone, I have to go back in with some of the undersea green because I don't want it to be separate from that look. It's going to blend more in there. And you know, when I said earlier, I like the painting to guide me in a sense, and especially with the way I paint watercolor, there's no way I could plan this out saying, well, here it's going to bleed into here, and then if I add this, it's going to do this, and it's going to create this form. Well, we don't ever know what it's going to create until we lay it down, and that's the beauty of how watercolor works too. Now I'm going to take this over a little bit from here, and I'm going to bring it some more of the trees here too. Now what I'm doing, I'm balancing this entire page. I'm trying to make sure that the design is strong and works. And if I just paint one little area and not the other, the outcome to me is not going to be what I want it to be. As the way I twisted that here, I'm going to twist some of that here too. And you're wondering, is the sky going to be white? No, it's not. Now, so there are times, if I want this darker, I will go in with my green colors, nicely, a lot of pigment, and then I'm going to add some French ultramarine blue, and I want you to see what that does. Just show you how deep it becomes. But I don't want to kill all of that, but I just want this color here to bring forward this rectangular shape. I can put that same darkness here. Now the blue is going to really blend nicely there. And this French ultramarine is a granulating color, so it will add a lot of interest in those areas. But look at the pattern that's already here. Clean my brush really well. This might be where I need to put some cobalt blue. I don't want it too bright. Wash that out and just have water from here. if some of our people, artists in on Facebook or here, I want you to get the idea that you can experiment and watch how, just don't be afraid to try something new. Anyway, notice how the blue is and the green is fading into the sky. I'm going to use a little bit of this Quin Gold. Remember what I said earlier? You put just I'm not going to use that brush. If you just put a little bit of the Quin Gold in here, it will just push that other color out of the way and create a nice warm spot right there. See how that's beginning to bleed into that? It just grows.
Rick, this is so stunning. We're all just mesmerized.
But
You know,
Rick, make sure everybody understand how much time you spent on knowing your colors and design and all the knowledge that you collect through the years and the experiment and try and play, because
right.
it looks easy, but there are years behind that.
But you know, we want it to look easy.
Right.
I mean, we really do, because if it looked difficult, some people may not feel comfortable in trying it.
Yes.
But if we can encourage people to just begin with it, and that's why I love these demo sessions and the color mixes on Thursday. We have so much to give the people everyone who signs into this. And you know, watercolor I paint it in a spontaneous way, but I'm patient with that. You know, if you just hurry up and do it all, and that's why I set this one piece aside. So you know, a lot of times when we start to paint, for me, I keep referencing myself, I'm so anxious to continue. And when a lot of being successful with your paintings is not so much the time spent actually painting on the surface, it's how much time is spent seeing the results and backing away. You know, like people say, let it dry, let it dry, let it dry. And, you know, that's a big thing that people do say, because, you know, I remember in high school, my students used to be so anxious. You know, Mr. Anderson, how did you get that effect? Patience. You know, patience. And they said, well, I don't have patience. And my answer to that is patience is developed. And so that's what we do. We develop that. But look how, and I do a lot of talking sometimes, and that's on purpose to let things affect. But remember how I said that quinacridone gold just takes over? But it's just enough there. And I was going to earlier put quinacridone gold here, but remember also I said the painting talks to me, not literally, but it tells me what I need to do based on, like you said, based on your experience. And people say, how long did it take you to do that painting? My answer is 77 years and 4 hours, you know, and that's true. I'm going to take a little bit more there. And, you know, I'm looking at this too. I may not need to do anything or add any color down here. Once I give that a little bit of shape and definition, that might just balance it out by itself. And that may be just enough for an quinacridone gold. You know, the gold with that undersea green and that perylene green with that ultramarine, French ultramarine blue. Look at all the contrast that it gives. It's a little bright there. There you are. And we all see scenes like this everywhere we go when we're in the country. Now I'm going to go back to my large flat brush. Always have paper towels, always, or a sponge. Some of us use sponges. I just like to use the paper towels.
You know, Rick, that's such a good point. A lot of people don't talk about water control and talk about how to control the water. So it's a really good point that you bring up about
Well,
paper towels. It's a simple thing, but you really have that water control down.
Well, it's because of the hours that we all spend.
The play.
Yes.
I'm
A
gonna-
lot of play to learn all of this.
Thank you. All right, now this is still dry here. I'm trying to think. I think what I will do. Now this is where my mop brush comes in. Just water, because this brush, and once you learn how to use the brushes, or what brushes will do, you owe it to the paint that you buy to get brushes that will work well with the paint. Does that make sense? Yeah. And, expensive doesn't mean better, nor cheap doesn't mean it's okay. Now, I'm going to lay in water here. And what I like about the brush with this nice point is it will go right up to the edge. Now this area is dry, so it's not going to bleed in there. Again, at least 2 buckets of water, and keep one clean all the time. All right, that's wet. I will go back. I think what I'm going to try this. I'm going to see what just lavender by itself will do here, because I can always go back and lay in some cobalt blue that will blend with that very well. Look how that just bleeds out. Now, I would leave white space, but I'm not going to, because I want this entire area. I don't want the white space to take away from other places. So I go real carefully and real clean. Some people might want to take a tiny, tiny brush, like this, and go, well, let me do this. See, why do that when this works better? And I brace my hand or my finger on something, so I do have some control. I know what I'm going to have to do too after I lay this in. Even if I hit a little bit of that green here and bring it down. This actually doesn't work with that right now. Let me bring it up closer. It's hard to see, isn't it? I guess that light's really catching it. Now it looks more spotty on the camera, but it's more even. I know it's going to dry darker, so I'm going to go in now that I've laid it in and add a little bit more pigment. You really can't see that. Let me see if I can change that light.
Are you using the lavender color in that?
I'm using the lavender, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, because the reflection in some area don't see the color, but right now I can start to see the lavender color. Yeah.
Ah, look, is that better?
Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah.
Okay. Now on the paper, it's really lighter than that.
Yeah. Very bright.
But I'm going to go
That
now.
changes everything.
It does. I'm going to go in with a little bit of the cobalt
It's
blue.
very spectacular to see. You don't have any reference in your mind, but I think to get some experience like this is a lot of years to practice. Very, very good experience today.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Rick. Congratulations.
Well, I took it up higher. Now I'm going to lighten that up now a little bit and see if it makes a difference.
Wow.
So that's closer to
Oh.
it here.
Oh.
See, but now see how that really will, and I'll probably go back into here with a little bit of lavender as well. And so we see how we take a shape that we don't normally work with, because it can be challenging. And because you've got to, or I have to, as I'm painting on this, have to balance everything to make it work. Get a little darker. Let's see what I may want to do. I really need, now that this is dry and that's dry a little bit, I think I will at this point. And again, remember earlier I said the painting guides me. Now I won't start working on that yet, but what I want to do is, just like those trees, I'll turn my hand sideways. That's how I get water out of the brush, just with my fingers. And notice as I'm painting, I'm holding the brush towards the end and letting my hand guide it with my fingers. Some people might be down here like this, trying to do it, but I like the way it just will go up.
Rick, are you using indigo?
This is a combination of indigo and quinacridone burnt orange, like I mixed earlier.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome. Because I don't want it to be just black or just the burnt orange by itself. Now, this is bleeding into it, but I don't mind that. It just gives us more depth. The trees actually take your eye backwards because of where it's laid in. Now, I am going to take a little smaller brush, like a number 6, a Scoda brush. And since this is pretty dry, what I want to do is try to define this a little bit more. I don't have to do a lot, I don't think. But let me get I'm going to use over here. I've gotten the color of brown. It's not Van Dyke. I think it's a tiger's eye brown. And I'm going to add a little bit of the Palo Scarlet with that. I'm trying to get like a tin look a little bit. And here, quinacridone burnt orange. That may be just enough. But I don't want it to be real bright. I have to make sure I put my hand here. Oh, it needs to be a little bit more. That's going to work. Without killing all of the white. I just want the feel of this being a rooftop. And I'm going to leave that hairline of white there. And as this roof comes down, a little bit darker here, a little bit more of the red. I'm going to take a chance and touch this indigo with the red, just to get a deeper look. And as this is still wet, it's going to have a nice little bleed to it. And I'm going to get really bold here because this is going to need to have a shadow. And if I put another line, that's going to make that rest right here. And this blue, I'm going to add a little bit of the quinacridone blue right into that, so it will get a deeper look, like it's a shadow effect under that. And the structure, I need to level this off a little bit. And this is where I do the refining of it. And breaking this space, rather than making that solid, the dark, the light, the dark, the light, the dark, the little bit of light, and the focal point right there. That's too bright here. So I'm just going to take, see what this little bit of blue does. Just enough. A little bit here. Now it has the feeling of life in the sense of people here. And, you know, this is really not too far from stopping. People say, when do you know when to stop? Well, if you can't think or decide what you want to do next, you may want to stop at that point. And I don't necessarily mean stop for good. As the painting that I just put over here is resting, my mind has been focusing on this piece. When I bring the other piece over, I will see it sort of fresh again. So I'm going to take this one over.
Do you always paint few paintings at the same time, Rick?
Sometime 3 or 4.
That's great.
But you know, it's as artists, we know that if we sit and just twiddle our thumbs and wait, you know,
the muse will never come.
See, that's right. So if you, and of course people say, Rick, are you how do you get in the mood to paint? Well, I don't know what that word mood means, because it's, I really don't. And what inspires you? Well, I don't know. I just paint, you know, and I love what I do. And I just love the excitement of experimenting. And then perhaps a good painting is the result, but it's the experimenting, it's the painting all the time, as John had said earlier, all the years to get where you are. There's never, if you're working and painting, it's never a waste of time. I remember there was years and years and years ago, I was working on a watercolor paper on illustration board, 30 by 40. And I just was ready to, put it in the trash can. Well, I let it sit for about a month, and I came back to it, and I just did what I think it needed to do, because I saw it fresh. And I got in the Rocky Mountain National Watercolor Society show with that painting in the 1970s. So, it pays to be patient, because patience is developed. Now I'm going to go, I'm going to use some of the same color that I on the piece over there. I'm going to go in now that it's totally dry, and look what can happen here. And move these lines. Also, just using this little bitty mister, well, not small. If I barely spray that, well, I think what happened too is it went onto my roof. I'll have to work with that later. See, things do happen. And it could be, I think, because the painting is bleeding over into that roof, this structure behind it could actually have some branches that are over the roof. And painting this color over top of the quinacridone gold really gives that it's transparent watercolor, so you can still see that color that you've painted over top of. These points on these edges on these brushes just work so well. Again, patience. I can see this tree, a cluster of trees over there. Now this takes my eye this way. Now if this takes my eye this way with all that space, again, I won't finish this before we leave today, but I will have painted it at a point where the more I go back into it, it's almost like a photograph out of focus, that the more I work, the more the piece starts to come into focus. And again, I'm not wasting paint because I'm using what's over here because it will work. I'm going to do a little bit more here. Let's see how this brush with that nice edge moves. It helps you do what you want to do.
It is the hand, Rick. It is the hand.
Is it? Yeah. Thank you. I'm gonna owe you some money today for all your compliments.
We
I'll
will
tell you what.
hold you on that.
How about friendship? How's that?
That is the greatest benefit of it.
It really is. But look how transparent this is becoming. See, that's the magic. And I don't mean that as a magician, but that's the magic of watercolor. Some of the effects that we can get. I'm gonna put some lavender here because that hard edge is bothering me a little bit. It's been bothering me since it happened. And see what that lavender does? It just covers it, but it blends well with that. I mean, look how that just, I need it right here, just a little bit. Look how that works. So, and maybe a little lavender here too. Oh, yeah. You know, if somebody says I'm bored, you've not watercolor painted.
How could you be bored with those beautiful colors? You splash them there and the inspiration comes.
Absolutely. Like I say, the painting tells me what to do. And isn't that nice? You know, I'm so glad that we do this because we can share this with everybody who watches. Now, what I'm doing, I'm just gently putting, making sure I don't kill that warm color there because it needs to have, oh, I need some right here. A little bit right there. Move a little bit of the ultramarine in with that. We'll put that here a little bit more. It's going to be a little darker. Let me turn it slightly. I want to just get it right at the edge here. But I don't want that to blend. I want that little bit of space to be there. Wow, that's working. Now watch this. Now, see, this is going to take our eye all over here. If I can make this, I don't want this to compete with that. I want it to work with it. So I won't put that at the same level as that. See, we're always, as artists, we're always making decisions and thinking because I think our minds work faster behind the scenes, then we realize it. Because I don't have to say, now, what do I need to do next? Because you look at it, and because of doing this for a long time, that information is developed, and it's all in us, what we do. And that's what's so wonderful about painting like this. Now, see how when I do the structure, I may not need much more up here at all, and not much down at the bottom. So I'll have to, when I set this aside, I'll have to let it rest a while. That's what I like to call it, let it rest. And then come back to it fresh. And so I gradually will bring some of this darker down here. I know what I'm going to do now. Watch, clean my brush. This is dry.
Hey, Rick, just wanted to let you know it is 12:32.
Oh,
but we're
almost done.
I'm smiling watching you paint all the time, Rick. I'm smiling.
Let me do one more little thing here, okay? Now
we're
that I
all
put
mesmerized.
Yeah, don't stop. We want to know
what's
happening.
Not wait to see it, Rick.
Not that I have the water here, and see, why don't I stop for now? Almost.
Is that undersea or is that the
Undersea
purely?
green. Now this is undersea green, and
okay, good.
I think I put a tad of sepia in it. See, just to give it a little bit more of a contrast. See how that works? Just layer that in. Just happen. Oh, that may be too much. I don't know. Well, it won't be if I take it to the edge. And so using that brush, how you can twist it. And this is pulling our eye. Now this is going to lead right to the water here. It's going to leave all the pigment, a lot of the pigment right there. And important that I go off the paper, not just stop. Can I stop now, Ashley?
Oh, it's not up to me.
Okay,
I
time's
think that it's, yeah.
Okay, time's up.
I just
Rick,
want to say
you are
thank
amazing.
you.
Your enthusiasm is contagious, Rick.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're a
Thank
great
you for
teacher.
your
Love it.
thoughtful
Thank you.
explanations.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you, Rick.
you.
Rick.
Beautiful.
Thank you,
Absolutely
Rick.
amazing.
Thank you, Rick.
Ethel, thank
Amazing.
you for talking to me
See you in
yesterday.
October, Rick.
There's
Thank you,
there's
Rick.
over 100 of us in the room, just in
Wow.
Zoom.
Thank you. Well,
Thinking a lot.
Thank you.
I hope it's
There's-
been educational.
It has.
Your explanations are
Very
wonderful, Rick. Thank you so much.
Having good paint to work
Hey,
with.
Rich. Almost done.
Oh, Sylvia
Thank you,
Sylvia painted along.
Oh,
Yeah.
cool.
I think that this was the most educational one I've seen in a
Absolutely.
long time.
Well, thank you.
But
Only-
Great,
it still have to
Sylvia.
do the.
Only taught for 25
Yeah.
years. Cool.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't.
Very nice. Thank you, everybody.
Thank
you.
everybody.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, Rick.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wonderful
Rick.
weekend, everybody.
Everybody. Yes.
Oh,
have a wonderful
I
weekend.
too.
Bye,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Thanks, Hannah.
Bye-bye.